Hello, everybody. This is an out of the theater review, and I'll use that term very lightly because I'm not going to go in depth about this. I'm just going to say a few things about it. Of the movie Smile 2. Okay? Now, let me tell you a little bit of the background for me for the first film, Smile, the original. I hadn't heard of Smile, and then at one point, somebody I know who makes me movies gave me a copy of the Smile movie, and when I watched it, I was pleasantly surprised. I did a review on it, and I liked it. I gave it 3 out of 4 stars, which is good. I liked the idea, the concept behind it, the acting in it. I really was very much surprised by it. So I was eager to see the second movie, and here it is. Okay, now, this movie was terrible. I mean, I'm not kidding. For me, I'm talking about. I saw this movie, and I absolutely, from the first scene all the way to the very last frame and closing shots of the movie, didn't know what the hell was supposed to be going on in this thing. There's nothing I hate more than going to see a movie and you're lost throughout the whole thing. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what's supposed to be going on. In this particular movie, a lot of it has to do with hallucinations, things in the mind, nightmares, what's real, what's not real, who's not real. You know, it's absolutely confounding. And although there was a part of that in the original Smile, at least it kept me on the ball and I still was able to know what was happening. I always say it's not my responsibility to try to figure out a movie. It's the movie's responsibility to let you know what's happening. And even if things get a little bit like a puzzle, a little bit confusing and disorienting, as long as at some point, it brings you back to the state where you say, now I understand what's been going on, it's okay. This movie did not do that. There's a lot of gore in it for people who like gore. A lot of crazy scenes. The story, that I can figure out the story, but what's going on concerns, in the story, there I go with the word story again for this thing. I use that word very loosely. Has to do with a young singer, a pop singer in the Taylor Swift mode, who's really big and famous. And by the way, I couldn't stand her character. Throughout the entire movie, I couldn't stand her. Who is trying to remain popular and on tour and doing everything, but she's got all kinds of drug issues and problems, and she winds up getting, of course, infected by this Smile thing, which is not clear at all, even though you get some kind of an explanation 3/4 of the way into the movie, and it held a little, but not really much, because then I still didn't understand what was going on after the explanation. It really is a mess, and a lot of crazy things are happening to her in her mind, in her life, her personal demons, her nightmares, her absolutely distressing, not only to her, but to me as an audience member. I guess it's supposed to be the idea. It's supposed to be what a movie's like when you're having a character that's kind of going through all kinds of crazy hallucinations and things that are not really there, and how her mind is falling apart, what it's like to have a psychotic breakdown, I guess. Well, I'm not interested in seeing that. I don't mind indulging in a little of that as part of a story, but this was just like getting into her brain the whole time. And even though, again, not to repeat myself, even though the original Smile film had that as its crux, it still was more coherent and understandable than this mess. It was a mess. I felt like walking out of the theater many times during this. I stayed for the whole thing. But I did feel like leaving, and I can't remember the last time it was that I ever left the theater and went through it. But this came close, okay? Now, the thing that was really a shock to me at the end of the movie was I was saying to myself, who the hell wrote this thing? Who directed this thing? I was astonished to see it was Parker Finn. His name came big on the screen at the end. Written and directed by Parker Finn, the same guy who did the first one. You know, sometimes you give people a little more money, a little more clout, a little more ability to go wild, and they just make something that's crazy. Now, when I got into the car, the first thing I did was I whipped out my phone because I wanted to go on and I wanted to see what most of the fans thought of this movie. And so far, now I'm not done yet, I'm still going to look, but a lot of what I've seen are an approval. some of them said they liked part 2 better than the first one. And I just can't imagine that. But hey, different strokes for different folks. I rate movies usually on a scale of 1 to 4 stars. That's my ratings. This one I'm going to give a 0. And I don't give many films a 0. They usually get at least a 1 or 1.5 sometimes. This thing was just a complete waste of my time and a very big disappointment as a sequel. Probably the most disappointing sequel I've seen in a long time. Right down there with Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and for me, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Like that level for me of disappointment after a good first movie. All right? So I will never see Smile 2 again. I have no interest in seeing any further Smile movies, 3, 4, or 99, whatever they do. And having said that, I'm still going to keep my Blu-ray copy of the first Smile. It's a one shot for me.